History books were wrong for centuries. A single discovery in a remote field shattered the long-accepted timeline of exploration and revealed a truth far older than anyone dared to believe. By the end of this story, you will understand how one archaeological find permanently rewrote the story of the Americas. We will uncover the mysterious object that started it all and explore the fierce debate it ignited among experts. How could an entire civilization's greatest achievement be hidden for so long? What does it mean when a legend turns out to be real? What forgotten story from the past most makes you question what you think you know? A small team of Norwegian explorers stood on a windswept coastline in the 1960s, convinced they had found the lost Viking gateway to the Americas. Helge and Anne Stine Ingstad faced overwhelming skepticism from the academic world. They were looking for a place most scholars believed was pure myth, a saga with no basis in fact. Yet there, at Meadows on the very northern tip of Newfoundland, they began to dig. Their work was painstaking and slow, a careful scraping away of peat and turf. Then the ground began to yield its secrets. The outlines of structures emerged, not the temporary camps of indigenous peoples, but the distinct foundations of Norse buildings. The team uncovered the ghosts of great halls, smithies, and sod huts. With each trowel of earth, the legend of Vinland was transforming into historical reality. The first solid proof came in the form of simple, everyday objects. They found iron nails forged in a way unique to Norse blacksmiths. They discovered a small bronze cloak pin, a personal item lost by someone 1,000 years ago. A stone lamp used to light the dark interior of a longhouse was unearthed. Perhaps most telling of all were the remains of butternuts. These nuts come from a tree that does not grow anywhere near that far north. Someone had carried them back from a journey to a warmer, more southerly land. The layout of the village itself was the final, undeniable piece of evidence. The longhouses were arranged exactly like those built by Vikings in Greenland and Iceland. This was not a random settlement. It was a deliberate, organized outpost constructed by people who knew how to build a home in a new world. For the first time in history, there was physical, archaeological proof that the Vikings had not only reached North America, but they had lived there. How does a single discovery change everything we thought we knew? But the buildings and artifacts only told part of the story. To truly confirm that this was a Viking settlement and to silence the skeptics for good, the team needed to answer one critical question. Exactly how old was this place? The answer lay in a revolutionary scientific process called carbon dating. This technique measures the slow decay of a radioactive form of carbon found in all living things. When an organism dies, this radioactive clock starts ticking. By measuring how much is left in a piece of wood or bone, scientists can estimate its age. The first samples of wood from the Norse hearths and buildings were sent for analysis. The initial results were a jumble, giving a wide range of possible dates. This was not unusual for a new technology, and it gave the remaining doubters a reason to question everything. They argued the site could be much younger, perhaps a later European fishing camp, and not Viking at all. The debate grew heated. It was a classic clash between an established historical narrative and new, hard evidence. The accepted story of Columbus discovering America was a cornerstone of history, and here was a group of Norwegian explorers with a handful of nails and some old wood claiming to overturn it. The scientific process, however, was just beginning. Over the following years, carbon dating techniques were refined and improved. Scientists returned to the wood fragments from Meadows, this time selecting the most pristine samples, like a piece of a tree ring that could be precisely linked to the year it was cut down. The results were stunningly specific. The settlement was occupied around the year 1000 AD. This was not just a little bit before Columbus, it was a full 500 years earlier. The scientific data was now undeniable. It was the key that finally unlocked the truth, transforming a contested archaeological dig into a world-changing historical fact. Imagine holding a piece of wood that was last touched by a Viking craftsman a millennium ago, a full 5 centuries before other European ships even arrived. This was no longer a legend from a saga. It was a dated, confirmed, and permanent entry in the history of human exploration. The carbon-dated wood did more than just confirm a date. It gave a voice to the ancient stories. For centuries, 2 epic tales, the Saga of the Greenlanders and the Saga of Eric the Red, had been dismissed as fanciful fiction. They spoke of a violent storm that blew a ship far off course, of a new land sighted to the west, and of a determined explorer named Leif Erikson who deliberately set out to find it. The sagas called this place Vinland, a land so temperate it grew wild grapes and self-sown wheat. To historians, this sounded like a classic exaggeration, a mythical paradise inserted into a hero's journey. But with the physical proof of Elance Ox Meadows in hand, scholars could suddenly read these texts with new eyes. The descriptions were not just wild stories. They were a coded map, a historical record preserved through oral tradition. The saga's account of the voyage itself was now shockingly precise. It described sailing down a long, barren coastline, then turning into a narrow strait between a prominent island and a foreland, finally reaching a place where ships could be beached in a sheltered bay. This exact sequence of landmarks fits the journey from the open Atlantic, past Belle Isle, and into the bay at Elance Ox Meadows. The settlement described in the stories, with its great halls and boat sheds, mirrored the foundations being unearthed in Newfoundland. Even the resources mentioned held up to scrutiny. Archaeologists found butternuts and the remains of wild berries, resources a Norse explorer would have logically described as grapes in a new and unfamiliar land. The sagas also spoke of the Vikings' encounters with the people already living there, whom they called the Skraelings. These meetings were sometimes peaceful, involving trade, and other times violent. The archaeological record at Elance Ox Meadows, while not showing evidence of a battle, confirms a short-lived settlement, one that was abandoned after only a few years. This aligns perfectly with the saga's implication that conflict with the local population made a permanent colony impossible. Suddenly, the entire narrative shifted. The Viking sagas were not mere myth. They were a unique blend of history and storytelling, containing a core of geographical and cultural truth that had been waiting centuries for its physical proof to be discovered. The written word and the excavated earth were telling the same story, a story of courage, exploration, and a fleeting moment of contact that rewrote history. The confirmation of a Viking settlement in North America sent shockwaves through the world of history. It was a tremor that permanently cracked the foundation of a story everyone thought they knew. For centuries, the year 1492 stood as an immovable pillar, the moment Christopher Columbus connected 2 worlds. But now, that first known European contact was pushed back by 500 years. Columbus did not discover a new world. He arrived in a world that had already been found. His legacy was transformed in an instant from the singular discoverer to one figure in a much longer, more complex chain of exploration. He was a rediscoverer whose voyages suddenly appeared less like a beginning and more like a dramatic continuation. This single site in Newfoundland also forced a complete reassessment of Viking capabilities. We knew they were raiders and traders, but the journey across the North Atlantic was a different kind of challenge altogether. This was not a coastal hop from Norway to England. It was a vast, open ocean crossing into the unknown, a treacherous voyage through some of the most dangerous waters on the planet. Elance Ox Meadows stands as permanent proof that their ships were not just raiding vessels, but the most advanced exploration technology of their age, capable of surviving a journey that would have been unthinkable for any other European power at the time. They were not just pirates, they were the astronauts of the Viking Age, pushing the boundaries of the known world. Perhaps the most profound ripple from this discovery was the door it opened to a forgotten chapter of human interaction. The saga spoke of the Skraelings, the indigenous people the Norse encountered. For a long time, these were just characters in a story, but the archaeological proof of a settlement meant those encounters were real. What were those moments like? A Norse warrior and a member of the Micmac or Beothuk people standing face to face on that rocky shore, two worlds colliding in a fleeting, silent moment that history almost forgot. While the Norse settlement was brief, it forces us to ask new questions. Was there trade, an exchange of knowledge, a cultural memory of these strange visitors that persisted in indigenous oral traditions long after the Vikings had gone? The discovery did not just add a new date to a timeline. It wove a new, intricate thread into the vast tapestry of human history, proving that the story of the Americas was always more connected and far more interesting than we ever knew. The true legacy of Elance Ox Meadows is not a revised date in a textbook, but a profound shift in how we see the world. It forces us to accept that history is not a collection of settled facts, but a living, breathing story, always ready for a new chapter to be unearthed. This remote outpost was far more than a seasonal camp. It was the first gateway to a continent, a breathtaking leap of human courage and technological skill. Those Norse explorers, braving the terrifying expanse of the North Atlantic in their wooden ships, achieved what was thought impossible for another 5 centuries. They were the ultimate pioneers, their story a testament to the relentless power of human curiosity. So the next time you look at a map of the world, remember that its edges were drawn by countless such journeys, many of which we have yet to rediscover. What other secrets lie hidden just beneath our feet, waiting for a chance discovery to rewrite everything we think we know? Which historical mystery do you believe will be the next to fall? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for more journeys into the forgotten past that forever shapes our present.